Hello there, and welcome people to the fourth interview of today. Yes, the fourth scheduled interview. I'm here, of course, with Casey Explosion. Who the hell am I? Because some of you might be new. I'm Peter Slash Ethel, the founder and co-admin of EssenceOfThought, which is a YouTube channel that does fully reference human rights resources or videos. And that's kind of my thing. They, she, he for pronouns. As for why we're here and why there's this legal fund above my head, well, there are transphobic people out there, and those transphobic people like to make the lives of trans people, especially trans children, incredibly shitty. But they do not like people reporting on that shitty behaviour, so if you do that, they will threaten you with a slap suit. So, we're just preparing a fund in case it actually goes to court. Pink News was also threatened, along with various other people, and actually removed their articles, so we're a little unsure as to where we are with that. If, however, the money isn't used to defend against Graham, it will be in a public defence fund that any transphobic bigot that attempts a slap suit, which, let's be honest, is likely to continue to happen with how things are becoming more and more toxic, the money will go towards that. So, yes, I'm just letting everybody know. As noted, I have a rather esteemed guest in this hour, and that is Casey Explosion. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure, but just shouldn't you be introducing this esteemed guest first before me?
You had me panic there. Everything going on had me panic. No, you are the esteemed guest. Like, you are. You'd be surprised at how many trans people recognize you. Like even in real life, people know you.
Oh wow.
Even in India, people know you. So
What?
you
Really?
you have reach. You have reach, Casey.
Oh my God.
So
This will never not be new to me because it's kind of like what do I do that's anything?
yeah. So
Get up there, you. Come here. Come here. Sorry, doggo is here.
doggo is very
Easy
important.
now. Easy now. Sitting down there. Sit down.
So
There we go.
yes.
So she's just been curled up in her blanket, or wrapped up in her blanket rather, because she's all wet after being out. Now, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but the weather in Ireland is horrific right now. So Doggo is not very happy.
Doggos
Yay.
everywhere. Not very happy. So yes, would you like to introduce yourself? Perhaps starting with pronouns.
So I'm Casey. She, her pronouns. I am a Twitter sloth, and I stream videos game on Twitch, and that's it. I talk rubbish, and for some reason I'm inexplicably famous.
Well, also got a $5 donation from Rembimon. Thank you very much. It's all
Oh,
very
Rambimon,
helpful.
I recognize that name. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It all goes towards the same fund, so it's a great help. Well, I think a large part of it is, I mean, you already had a presence before everything went down last year with Mermaids, but then, with Mermaids and how involved you were with everything there, everything stepped up a notch, or at least from my perspective as an outsider. I don't know how it looked for you. um,
Um, Basically, I kind of like I was I had a minor presence on Twitter before that,
mhm.
so it kind of felt like after that Mermaid stream, everything kind of really snowballed for me, and
Hmm.
yeah, so I think
Yes.
that's part of like I was ticking away on Twitter for a couple of years.
For those who don't know what we're talking about, the Mermaid stream, this isn't the first time Graham has decided that he likes to hurt trans children. This time he was trying to help a friend of his, Stella O'Malley, a Irish psychiatrist, compile a list of gender critical therapists, which is coded for therapists who are quite willing to engage in gender identity conversion efforts. Um, Conversion therapy, as it's sometimes referred to rather inaccurately, is closer akin to torture because it is entirely destructive. It's the oppositional approach to gender affirmative care, which has been shown to increase the well-being of trans children's lives, to decrease anxiety and depression down to levels equal to that of a cisgender control. But before this, last year, he also went after a UK charity, Mermaids, which offers basic support resources, group sessions, counselling, connections for parents of children who are trans. And because of this, he decided to go to Mumsnet, engage a load of bigots there, tell them to spam the lottery fund, which was due to grant Mermaids money, and tell them that they were giving children hormones, that they were doing all this abusive stuff. And thankfully, nothing came of it. Like, the funding was halted for a while as they did a review. They found absolutely nothing. But in the process, Casey, thanks for donating the $5. Casey
No problem.
worked along with numerous other YouTubers. They came together, they created a stream whilst H-Bomber Guy was playing through Donkey Kong 64, and they raised an additional, was it $330,000, £250,000 extra?
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was a lot.
Far more than anybody expected.
It kind of blew up, and you were having all sorts of guests coming on. And I just wanted to thank you for that, actually, personally, because I gained some personal benefit from that in the fact that the year before, with how everything was getting, I was just getting incredibly depressed, and the dysphoria was becoming worse. I just stopped appearing on camera because of it, because I just couldn't deal with the constant abuse with everything. And then after that stream, because it was just after New Year, after that stream I put out a video. I was like, you know what, it's past New Year, but the times and calendars, they're all arbitrary anyway. I'm going to make a resolution to myself now. I'm going to appear in as many videos as I can. And last year I appeared in every single one of my videos on camera, even the one that I was reading verbatim a study. So yes, thank you for helping out with that, because it really, not just the money, the money was a big thing for Mermaids, and the trans community is really thankful for everything you did in raising that, but also just the show of support and the fact that you let us know that it's not just a bigoted world out there, that there are people who care about that. So yes, thank you for that. That was really appreciated.
I think that's one of my favorite things about the stream, is that what I heard back from people about it was amazing, because
you touched a lot of lives that weekend. So yeah,
I'm still incredibly proud of that. I really am.
You should be. You really should be. I can't really congratulate enough for it and thank you enough for it. It's just, yeah.
I think the amount, what I really loved was the amount of people who wanted to get on. A lot of very, very well-known people, celebrities and things, begging to get onto this stream to show their support. And it felt like we often feel like we are overwhelmed with transphobia and that everybody hates us, and that show of support was incredible. Getting folks like John Romero on there and saying Doom Guy says trans rights, and
AOC and Chelsea Manning was also on at one point, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was.
So again, there was a lot of people on there, a lot of well-known people, and it was just an amazing display. Yes. So anyway, that is the backstory to all this. So we're kind of linked in that we're both going up against Graham Linehan, but I guess he's kind of forced us into that position by kind of making him the centre of the debate, both in the Republic of Ireland and in the UK, with his activities there. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of also been interesting these past few years seeing the relationship between Ireland and the UK, because we've both got something that we would kind of wish the other one had. The UK, we of course we're trying to get the Gender Recognition Act, and in Ireland, I believe you have self ID to like beyond a certain age. I think it's 16, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, 16, I think.
So like you've got that bit, but then
For
as
about 4 years now.
yes,
I think it's 4 years.
and interestingly, there hasn't been this massive spike in assaults on women in bathrooms, etc. It's almost like all the fear mongering in places like the UK had no basis. Um,
It's very interesting what happened in Ireland. We didn't have any kind of influence from any UK turf stuff or anything like that, and it was incredibly interesting and very very telling that recently, a few years back, we repealed
the abortion.
our Eighth Amendment, which banned abortion. It was a complete ban on abortion, and
At
there's
this time, Women's Place UK wanted to do a load of talking events in the Republic of Ireland.
it was by Venice Allen,
Oh, Venice Island, okay.
who under her "We Need to Talk"
Mm-hmm.
thingy, wanted to host talks in Ireland ahead of the ahead of the abortion referendum.
Mm-hmm.
So what we found was that a, a lot of Irish feminists were being harassed for pro-trans stances by UK feminists. Well, UK feminists with air quotes. So there was a lot of harassment because of statements that abortion rights campaign was making and things like this that were inclusive of trans masculine folks who were, who are affected by access to reproductive health care. So
it's funny. It's funny how
it's a big, it's a big import of big import for them importance, that we repealed the eighth. So and basically what happened was, Ireland's a small country, and most trans people in Ireland are extremely pro-choice, and from the get-go we're out, going to marches supporting the repeal effort from the get-go. And it was kind of like, now these turfs want to pop over here and have talks about trans issues ahead of the abortion referendum, when they never appeared before. They never reared their heads long before. When we had our own GRA, there wasn't a peep from them.
Yeah, it's a very selective care.
What a lot of groups at the time thought, this is very suspicious. So they wrote a load of Irish feminists and campaigns and groups signed on this what's known as the Turfs Out letter. So it was an open letter saying, "Nope, fuck off" to the Turfs, basically, and they cancelled their talks, because the assumption at the time was, this seems like something to stifle the repeal effort. It was specifically to sabotage sabotage the repeal effort.
Yeah.
And what we found out later then, that the same people who were trying to organize it had links to the Heritage Foundation in the US.
Yes.
And it's like, just months later, they were being flown off to meet with the Heritage Foundation in the US. And it's kind of like, damn, we dodged a bullet there. So, and some of the people who were making claims to be Irish feminists saying, drop all this pro-trans stuff or I'm voting no. And it was kind of like, we found out later, oh, those people were connected to the anti-abortion campaigners in Ireland. It's like, this is some serious AstroTurf stuff happening.
Yeah, like this is actually seen what like the Heritage Foundation, of course, is a US like far right evangelical organization.
Hmm.
They've been very busy in America as well, and one of the things they did uh, is they used the trans debate to define women solely by their reproductive capacity, so then that
Hmm.
definition could be used in anti-abortion laws.
Yep.
It's a two-step process. So yes, you really dodged a bullet with that one. Like and another thing they would have done is they just would have leached off the coverage of everything that was going on.
Hmm.
Because any sort of publicity for them is like validating because, as the numbers have shown, they don't actually have the background support they like to pretend. There's like a
No.
very vocal minority. You see it at the events they turn up to. They do not pull the large numbers that counter protests pull.
No, and it's usually the same people again and again being
Hmm.
shipped around to these events, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, oh, it's oh, they were on that flight to the US with the rest of them.
So,
It's kind of like the same bunch of people protesting pride and stuff like that. It's like,
but they use
yeah.
the news coverage and the word debate because like the word debate puts out this idea
Mm.
that there's two equal oppositional sides going at each other, and they use this. I was talking to I think it was Katie Montgomery about this, or was it Val? I was talking about with one of my other guests that it's kind of this Nixon-esque silent majority sort of approach to thing.
Yeah.
Like that people haven't spoken, but I can claim to speak for them then.
Yep.
When, as the stream that you ran kind of showed us, there was a lot of support. Like that was all money like raised from small, like just regular Joes, like all coming together and donating. It wasn't dodgy. A couple 100,000 coming out of nowhere from America, as
Mm.
yes, because recently we had the LGB Alliance suddenly pay for 135,000 advertising slot in various UK newspapers.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, very grassroots.
Who the
No
hell's
fundraising
funding this?
campaign.
Hmm.
Mimi Chio has donated $5. Thank you very much, Mimi. Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? How we can actually fundraise and they get these massive one-off donations from either anonymous or even openly paid off by groups such as the Heritage Foundation. There are
Yep.
also several other groups involved, like there was the one that released the doctored Planned Parenthood video. I forget the organisation. They've also had some attachments to
Alliance
them.
Defending Freeman,
I think it
Freedom. Is
might be. I
this
think it is. Yeah,
ADF?
I believe it is. So yeah, again, another one of these super conservative organisations that is meddling in LGBT plus stuff all over the globe because it's not trans people that have some cabal going on. We can actually show the monetary connections to the US. Yeah, the other side of this coin, the self-identification is kind of what set off this most recent event, and that is the fact that in Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, it's not illegal to attempt gender identity conversion efforts. I believe currently.
No, it's not.
So
There is a bill held up in the Dáil, which
okay,
is our parliament, I guess.
okay,
Um,
okay.
Dáil
I didn't
Éireann.
know about that.
Yeah,
That's
there's
my
a
next
bill,
question.
unfortunately. Yeah. So
um,
there is a bill there that will ban conversion therapy efforts, and it's held up, and yeah.
Yeah,
So
because it's currently illegal in the UK, so that's why I think
mm,
Glinner wasn't working with a UK psychiatrist to try and do this. They were going
mm,
out for the Irish Stella O'Malley.
yeah.
Um, and I think probably one thing I should be clear on is what GICE actually is. Because this go-to defense is that it's like not the extreme conversion therapy, but that's the thing. Conversion therapy as a label applies to any attempts to convince a child that they are their assigned birth gender. Um, you know, simply not supporting, not allowing a child to explore both their expression and their identity, that is all included as conversion efforts. The same for sexuality. Studies, I used a Trevor Project survey in my video, actually differentiated between organized formal conversion therapy efforts, which increased attempted suicide rates from 8 to 57%, I believe it was. It's still, even if you just try to convince a child to change either their sexuality or gender, it still increased it to 21% from a baseline of 8%. So, it doesn't get better just because it's not the most horrific forms that you hear about. I think there's a lot of confusion. People think that everything labeled conversion efforts has to be aversion therapy, which is actually a separate kind of therapy. That's when you link a response to a certain stimuli so that the mind subconsciously comes to recognize it. The most common one is substances. So you can get certain medications which, if you drink something, will make you pass it back up. So you come to associate drinking with throwing up, and it helps you overcome addiction. But that's not the only form of gender identity conversion efforts. There are various different ways, all of them harmful. None of them have been demonstrated to have any use outside of inflicting anguish and devaluing the value of life for the child or even adult. So yes, there's no real excuse for the practice on any level. Sorry, that I kind of took over there for a bit.
That's okay. I think one thing that I would interject with is there's this rhetorical trick that often gets played, and by people who advocate for this kind of treatment, is that they will say it's not that pray away the gay stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little rhetorical trick that makes you think that it's not some preacher who's running some weird camp or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
These are medical professionals. They're not the same thing as conversion therapy.
Yeah.
That's with the lie that's being covered there is that the conversion therapy was pioneered in the 70s by George A. Riekers out of LA.
Yeah. And that's actually also
UCLA. So that's the he published fraudulent papers that said that the child that he supposedly treated for feminine behavior had grown up to be a healthy adult, and when he found who this boy was, he had grown up deeply damaged and killed himself. And the I suppose the stereotype of this kind of treatment influencing the people who've gone through it to kill themselves, that is where that comes from. And where there's often a tendency where people will say, if somebody's homophobic, they're probably gay. There's that horrible kind of thing. But that came from Riekers as well, the guy who pioneered this kind of conversion therapy. He was quite famously outed as having hiring young rent boys and things like that. So it's kind of like these kind of stereotypes. They've come from the same place, and
that's one of the things I actually touched on in my video. One of the studies I used actually looked at both religious and secular attempts at conversion therapy. No significant difference between either sample. Don't worry. There's no significant difference between either sample. That they have both the same end result, which is not good. Um,
Mm.
compared to affirmative care, which has again just been shown to improve the quality of life for the child, whether they are trans or not, in exploring who they are, because
I
that's
think I think the thing with when we say affirmative care, it also kind of gets twisted a little bit by transphobic types to mean to say pushing somebody into being trans, and it's a case of no affirmative. When people say affirmative, it means just letting a person explore their own identity,
all it,
whether they are trans or not.
it's child-led
That's
therapy is the best way to describe it. All that really
mm,
happens is they're provided a safe environment. They're given the language and the tools to describe like how they feel, etc. And they're just observed to see how they develop over time, sort of thing. Like the biggest argument against like transphobes is like what they regularly cite, and that is the desistance rate statistics. Because
mm,
if you actually look at how they defined gender dysphoria in those studies to qualify children for the studies, it's not by a medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria. It is simply being referred to the clinics by untrained adults who don't know the difference between gender identity and gender expression.
mm,
And those are referred to clinics which take the gender affirmative approach. And yet 84% of them go away without receiving any further support. Some of them
mm,
might just be trans who don't feel the need to go through HRT or to surgically, alter anything. But the vast majority of them are just cis children whose parents saw them act outside gender stereotypes. The specialist looks at them, it's like, there's no identity, disconnect here. They're just exploring what they like, and they just went out. Like all of these children were ripe for the trans cabal, if there actually was one, to convert them into being trans, and yet the vast majority of them walk out of that door without receiving any further support because, surprisingly, the specialists know how to do their job.
mm.
And what's more is 100% of the people who do receive support go on to further forms of transitioning as they reach mid teenager adulthood. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's like the specialists know what to look for and know how to support people in exploring who they are. And of course, we come then to like discussions on desistance and the myths surrounding that.
Mhm.
I don't know if you know much about this topic or
A little.
a little. The very basic rundown of it is quite simply the majority of desistance isn't what people think of when they hear desistance. It's not a trans person going, actually, I was never trans, I was pushed down this way. There's like two examples I can really think of, both of which have now like joined very conservative religious backgrounds, and like they're doing the evangelical save for God sort of thing, saved by God. So like that's their grift. It's a very common sort of grift. The others you look into, the vast majority of them, like some of them say that they had higher expectations of what HRT and surgery could achieve, but the majority, the number one reason for desistance is the fact that they went in thinking that surgery and HRT would affect the way others treated them. But sadly, in society, that's not the case. People don't respect you if you go through, if you decide to go down the medical route. That's not a guarantee. In fact, all it can do is put you in a position where you can no longer pass as your assigned gender to be safe. So you're always like out. And you're just constantly receiving abuse. So yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And one of the things that doesn't really get talked about that much because um, should we say a lot of detransition people would go on to transition again when they're in a safer environment.
yeah.
And that's something that is often missing from these discussions.
Yeah, like, because of course people bring this up to argue against trans rights, and it's like, actually, if these people had more rights, then perhaps they would decide to continue with their process or go back to it. So
Hmm.
yeah, I believe Katie referred to it as a self-fulfilling prophecy, though it might have been Val. I'm so sorry. I've been interviewing so many people; it just gets sort of blurred together.
That's
um,
a-okay.
it's they refer to it as a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, we're going to target you and make you feel terrible, and then we're going to use your reaction to that to blame you. So yeah.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, so yes, one thing I want to ask is, do you find that like, is I guess you kind of already answered that. I was going to ask, do you feel like the Irish discourse surrounding trans rights is really influenced by the UK? But then you sort of mentioned that, like, again, with your passing of your self-ID laws, they didn't seem to really get involved at the time.
I think there is transphobia in Ireland, but it kind of comes from a more typical religious conservative faction rather
Mm-hmm.
than,
A secular sort of.
or at least the kind of people who will LARP as secular when it's convenient.
Mm-hmm. But will quite happily accept money from the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, there is, it doesn't seem as inflamed as it is in other countries. I'm very, very thankful and lucky about where I live. Ireland has its problems.
Mm-hmm.
I will absolutely not deny that. And I'm not saying this to kind of pat ourselves on the back, saying, "Way up the Irish, we're great."
Oh,
But
I wouldn't
in
allow
this
that. I
this
can.
sense,
That's joking. But yeah.
in this sense, yeah, Ireland is probably one of the best places to be if you're trans, because people are chill and they've got a sure, fuck it kind of attitude to it. That kind of thing. It's like eh. And I think there's been such a cultural shift over the last 30 years or so. We've gone from being an extremely a de facto theocracy
Mm-hmm.
to becoming far, far more liberal and far more progressive. So, gay marriage was voted in. Um, the abortion rights have been voted in, overwhelmingly supportive. So, it's kind of like, yeah, it's definitely going there. And even I don't know if you've noticed, we had our general election recently and completely booked the trend of going uh, against the grain of where a lot of countries would vote in very far right conservative governments. Ireland has kind of leaned more leftwards. So
Lucky you.
very, very lucky. Now our kind of center right parties are kind of trying to keep the left wing um, party out of government right now, and it's looking a bit dodgy. But it's really nice. It's kind of like, yeah, we're doing better.
That's good. Thank you, Rocky Dennis, for your $5 donation. They said, at least Dylan Moran seems nice. Yes.
Oh,
Um,
he's a
yes.
good bean.
Yes. Seeing how things are sort of devolving into right wing, it's like, I'm British. I deal with a lot of Americans, and I'm living in India.
Yeah, that's like a trifecta
That's a
of
trifecta of yeah. Oh,
'cause you have Modi at the moment.
I
I'm so
know we
sorry.
have Modi. Yeah.
Oh dear.
And there's the ongoing pogrom, which is a little terrifying actually.
I
Um,
can imagine.
yeah.
I solidarity with all of the Muslim peoples of India.
Yeah.
Um,
We're getting worried that it's starting to get to the point where it's going to start going to other communities, like the Sikh community, which is not backing down. Um,
mm,
and of course, there's the caste system as well, because lower caste has been helping out, has been supporting Muslims. Like, don't get it wrong, it's not just a case of every Hindu person in India hates Muslims. It is a very far right wing Hindustan, sometimes they're referred to, because they believe India's just a Hindu nation. But like every community has come together to fight this. It has been amazing, like seeing how they protest over here versus like places like the UK. 2 months on from like the CAA, and they're still in the streets. They're still in tents. They're still like thousands of them are still protesting. Others are offering support where they can. And I
mm,
should probably move the topic on before someone takes offence and sends us to
fair
the
enough.
government. Yeah, so thank you for the support. Just, I wish the world was paying a bit more attention, because like the UK is not getting any news about it, but the Dutch media is getting news about it. I know that because my mother's Dutch. But she's like she had no idea what was going on in India from the British news, but the Dutch news was very explicit.
Mm.
Yes, so I'm trying
I
to.
think that's a problem with British media in general.
Yeah.
They're not the most informative, are they?
No, no, they're not. And yeah, it's all one-sided, especially when it comes to trans issues. We've got all the money and all the billionaires apparently, but yeah, you look at like statistics on who's publishing what articles on trans people and to what direction, and it's all a little one-sided. Um,
Mm.
yeah. How's the actual media in like Ireland when it comes to trans rights? Because it's different, of course, for like the general public and how they see it versus how like the media sees it. Um,
Uh, probably not the best, but at the same time could be a hell of a lot worse. And
I mean, do they?
because it's such a small country, um, we kind of have like how should I say it's like there's a slight bit more access for some trans people who may have a voice in media to a small degree.
Mhm.
So it's like the media is very kind of tight knit in Ireland,
Okay.
and but depending on who you know, it's a case of they might like publish something.
Any platforming of former comedy writers
Unfortunately,
as
yes.
experts? Oh, okay. Okay.
Unfortunately, that does happen. They
Uh,
gave Linehan a primetime special a while back.
okay. Yes, we had that as
So
well. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
that was okay. That was broadcast to you as well. Okay. Wonderful.
No, it wasn't. Well, we like a year or so ago, we did actually have like our Irish.
Oh yeah, it was. It was sorry.
Did
Yes,
have
it was yours. I just downloaded it. I just got the media
Oh,
and I
okay.
went through it. Yes. Evan Cobb, thank you for donating $10. It's much appreciated. Um, it's steadily rising. Yes, of course, it's Irish prime time. Yes. Yes, I remember that episode. That was Stella O'Malley
Horrible.
talking at length about how, oh, I was a tomboy growing up. If I was alive today, they'd force me to have surgery. Yes.
Mm.
Oh, that lovely narrative. Even though if you go to like the DSM and all the literature on everything, it explicitly states that simple gender nonconformity when it comes to presentation is not a basis for gender dysphoria.
Nope.
But they do not care about that because facts can be inconvenient when you're a bigot. Um, yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? We're in the last 15 minutes of the interview.
I don't know. I
I have
just
a list. Let me have a look.
let you lead the discussion.
Okay.
This is your rodeo.
Oh, okay. Da, 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 da. Okay.
I will say I have been enjoying your videos for a while.
Oh, thank you very much. I know they're
Excuse me.
very dense, like informational dense. Um,
Okay, well, to be fair, I've been like generally I will watch like 2 hour long videos about obscure Russian games
okay.
that are dense,
Okay.
dense.
Okay.
So yours are it's cool. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, as noted with Mermaids, you kind of shot up on Twitter and you're doing various different things. Most notably advocacy and sort of game reviews. I know very recently you were honoured with an appearance in a game. Actually, I think it was, if I remember
Oh
correctly.
yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. I just thought I'd mention that you are. You are given a lot of fan art. I don't know if you commission a lot of art or if
I
people are just throwing it at you.
both. I
Oh,
do
okay.
commission a lot of art, especially I try I kind of tend to support a lot of trans artists.
Hmm.
I don't know. Do you know much about the furry community at all?
Yes, I was in the furry community from 2009 to 2011. That's how I came to the
Oh,
second community.
lovely.
Not so much.
Oh,
How I
I'm sorry.
left it, I was kind of forced out.
Oh
I
no.
whistle blew on a predator, and
Oh,
yeah.
that's very
Uh,
good of you, though.
it didn't do anything.
Oh.
Sadly, there was like no like Me Too movement at the time, sort of thing.
Hmm.
So, like, the abuse just sort of blew up, and I was out of there. But like it isn't the whole community. It was just the segment that I was in. It was very toxic. But
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no, you got nothing to apologize for. It's not your fault. I've seen the community's changed a lot since then. I've seen, especially when it comes to like the cons and cracking down on the Nazi furs. I've been
Yeah,
seeing that.
that's pretty good.
I've been seeing that's been proactive, and I've been like happy, like okay, you know what? Now that's getting better at least. There are segments out there proactively doing these sorts of things.
Mm.
So yeah, you got nothing to apologise for. But yes, I am intimately familiar with the furry community.
Okay, well,
Uh,
what I was going to say was there's a lot, quite it is a fandom slash community that is very LGBT friendly, and I find that for a lot of trans people, they find a great kind of it's kind of a great nerd space. So you do find that a lot of artists, a lot of creators in the furry community are some form of LGBT, a lot of trans as well.
yeah,
So my whole thing is like I will quite often support trans artists for when I commission art. So
that's a very good thing. I guess that
uh,
kind of leads into a different topic, and that actually connects kind of the game thing to the furry fandom, and that's the again, I was in the furry fandom. I remember these statistics from the furry fandom at the time. Actually, I don't know if they shifted, but they did a very large poll of like sexuality, and
hmm,
they're much more open about their sexuality than the general population. It was 48% bisexual, 23% homosexual, and the rest was they only measured the three identities. They only measured three identities, which were bisexual, homosexual, and heterosexual. They didn't measure any of the others back then, because sadly this was 2006. I think this poll was
hmm,
done. It's like really old poll. But yeah, it was very interesting to see that. And another thing I sort of touched upon is the way that trans people, I find, very often have a connection to things like communities. Doesn't necessarily be furry fandom. My Little Pony, it can be anime, online roleplay communities, and of course video
hmm,
games. And one big part of that, I think, is it's an outlet, especially for people who don't necessarily have access to a supportive environment where they can like dress as they want or act as they want or go by the pronouns they want. It's sort of a way for them to
Express themselves through
express
character
themselves through
creators and play
character
fashion
creators.
souls and things
Yes,
like that. Yeah.
yes. Oh, we have received a $5 donation from Astrospare. Astrospare, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Artospare, not Astrospare. Artospare, thank you very much. It's very much appreciated. So yes, like, did you have an experience of like exploring your identity through various different games and everything, or is that something you
I'm not.
did?
I will be completely honest with you. Not so much. I think when it comes to character creators and things like that, I can be very not that inventive and things like that. So
Okay.
I don't think so that much.
With me, it was always like sometimes I'd play male characters out of choice, but it was always like leaning the other way because as a gender
Yeah,
fluid one, as a gender fluid person, like I always get to live out one side of my life. That's fine, but it was like
yeah,
as a kid living out the other side because I knew from quite a young age. I remember trying to convey in words that I didn't feel quite right about my identity to like my father. Um,
hmm,
and like he came up with some sort of excuse which just kind of put the issue down, not in like a nasty way but just like oh it's just nothing, that sort of thing.
hmm.
So I was like,
By the way, I don't know if this is coming across on stream, and I apologize if it is, but I'm sorry that my dog is snoring.
I can't hear any snoring, so it's silent.
Okay.
It's good to know that your dog's relaxing though.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry
so
about that.
it's nothing to be sorry for. Yes, but yes, yeah, so there was that tendency to lean that way when I could in video games, because again, it's living
Hmm.
out a part I couldn't. We've just received a $10 super chat from the Tea Party. I interviewed Sandy Stone once, and she said, "You can't debate hate," in reference to terrorists that come after her. I found that to be true. It's like arguing with Christians at times. Um, uh, I don't know if you have anything to say on
That's
that.
true.
Uh,
Honestly, it's a case of, in a lot of debate situations, it's a case of, well, what exactly are we going to debate? And if the debate is
do trans
do
people
like,
exist? Do they
yeah, it's
deserve
kind
their
of like,
human rights?
y- by agreeing to that in the first place, you're already agreeing that it is up for debate. So you've lost the moment you've
Yeah.
agreed. So it's kind of a case of the only winning move is not to play. So yeah.
But there are different people that take different styles. Katie Montgomery is very direct and prefers to be at like the
Hmm.
front of things, because with her, she was talking about how it's more about like not for the person you're arguing with, it's everyone looking
Yeah.
like to see like this person has
Well,
no idea what they're talking about, sort of thing.
debate is theater in a lot of the sense. You're not.
Yeah, it's all about
It's
point
not
scoring.
exactly yeah. It's not exactly a skill that I put a lot into. It's like
Charisma is my dump stat. That's like it's not, I just avoid it as well.
hmm,
I prefer the more like clinical pathologist sort of approach to bigotry. Um, oh, Katie
shout out
Montgomery.
to
Shout
Casey's
out to
dog.
Casey's dog.
Aww.
Ah, thank you. Shout out to Katie on their theatre approach. But yeah, so like with me, I take more of a pathology sort of approach of scrutinizing, like taking it, putting it in a secure environment, and scrutinizing it as a social problem rather
Hmm.
than as a debate topic. We've also received a $10 donation from Phil, so all the donations are suddenly coming in. Uh,
Yay!
so like that
Thank you, Phil.
for me is safer just to like take a point, put it under a microscope, explain why it's like dehumanizing, and then tear it apart, sort of thing. Which is why I prefer my
Hmm.
my like reference style. But different styles connect with different people, and that's
I
that's
think one of
that's the
the
thing.
things, one of my approaches is, while I do quite a little bit of Oh, no worries.
Uh,
What was I going to say? I was saying my approach would be like, so when I'm talking a lot about kind of trans issues,
mhm.
I never debate.
Yeah.
I'm saying like this is here's what, but
You
I think
educate. Don't debate.
yeah,
Educate.
but I kind of think that me doing my own thing, doing all the video game stuff and the shit posty and the furry stuff is kind of like we kind of tend to see trans people purely as like when I say we, I mean the general public
Hmm.
rather than I should qualify that people tend to see trans people as kind of like sometimes just a font of knowledge on trans issues and nothing else. And I think
We can lose sight of the
showing
humanity. So
yeah,
yeah.
you can. And I think showing up and just being yourself and doing your own thing can be a wonderful way of just putting yourself out there can be fighting back against ignorance.
Existence can be
If
an act of rebellion when society doesn't want you to be there.
exactly, and in some cases it's kind of like, well, the best revenge is living well,
Hmm.
which is
And yeah,
it's a good idea to good thing to live by.
yeah, I think you do that really well. I mean, you get into so much. You like you don't hide the facts that you're trans. You're very upfront about it. But at the
Mm,
same time, like you do so many other things. You're involved with so many different projects. You're gaming. You're reviewing stuff. You're also helping other LGBT plus people make a living from their work as well by commissioning them because it always leads to, oh, who did you commission this from? Uh,
yeah, I find that I kind of find that even if I'm not commissioning somebody directly, just signal boosting people because I kind of find like one of the best things that anybody has done for me has been helping me out by boosting my Twitch streams and things like that. And it's like that's been I've got a fairly small audience on Twitch, but it's helping me in like incredible ways. And if I can help other people in that way, just give them that little bit of a boost up,
yeah,
that's amazing. I can do that for people. So
thank you.
I tend to signal boost a lot of people, not just fundraising stuff, but just artists trying to make a bit of a living and cover medical costs and things like that. So like when I have the money, I will commission artists, but also I will even if I don't, I will signal boost them and retweet their art and things like that. So it's yeah, it's kind of like if I can make a little money off Twitch, that's fantastic. That's made a huge difference to me. And if I can do that for somebody else as well, give them that little bit of a boost up, then I'm absolutely going to do that.
That's great. I just realizing what it describes as like it kind of balances the scale up because we're used to microaggressions like on a day to day basis.
Mm,
So it's kind of like the opposite to a microaggression. It you don't know how that even if it's like a small thing how it's going to benefit a person's life. It might seem completely like insignificant to you. It's just a retweet of something, but to that person in that moment, it can mean the world of difference, and it can improve their life to such an extraordinary extent.
mm.
We received a $30 donation from Sikanjal. So thank you, Sikanjal, for your $30 donation. We have now passed the 2,100 line. So that's great.
Okay,
We're moving forward.
congrats.
We're still moving up. So yes, and yeah, that's just it's a wonderful thing also to be able to help build something. Like if you're always like responding to like the negative hatred and everything,
Yeah.
that can be a little overwhelming. And again, that leads to like this position that I was in last year before the Mermaid stream, where I was just thinking, pretty much the world hates me. I've got this small like band of people around me that actually support me. Everyone else wants me dead. And then like you went forward with everyone else, and you did the stream, and that was just like a wake up call sort of thing. So yeah, that was it. All connects in some way. So yes. Last 5 minutes. Are there any wrapping up notes that you'd like to make, perhaps?
I don't know.
I feel like we discussed so much in this. This has been a very pleasant and a very calm, soothing, sort of relaxed conversation after the chaos, which was this morning. One of the guests, their system decided that it didn't want to process audio, and then Katie Montgomery's stream had a start with a bang, or actually the opposite of a bang, because as the stream was going live, it cut me out, and then decided because you started connecting to the stream but hadn't quite made it, I'm not going to let you reconnect. So I had to start a new stream up just so I could do it, tell everyone to go to this new stream, and it was just, yeah. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I really support what you're doing. Again, you've been amazing. I've been sharing your Twitch stream whenever I see it pop up.
Thank you.
Even though Twitch has been absolute evil towards me, I made a discovery on Friday with our first D&D session, and that was there are no Twitch servers in India.
That seems like
the closest one is Taiwan.
Wow.
So I can only get a bit rate of like 1,200 on Twitch.
Oh dear.
And I have a ridiculously high connection as well, so it was like stressing out. I try it with Google, just to like see is this like an alternative, hence the change of venue, and yeah, stable at 4,000, no issue, because Google has quite a big presence over here. So yeah, so I still support your Twitch work, even though Twitch doesn't support me. But yeah. So hopefully many good things to come for you and the people that you support in your work.
Thank you. I'm just ticking along, I guess. And
would you like to plug what's your Twitch? Is it Casey Explosion on Twitch as well? Or?
Yeah, it's Casey Explosion on Twitch, all one word, twitch.tv/Casey Explosion.
I shall link that down below, because normally I just see it on Twitter and I just click the link. So I'll link it in the description in this. Actually, I'll get it up now if I can. I assume if I go to your page, I will probably... Excuse me, I've got a bit of gas. I will probably see it there. Yes, Twitch Case Explosion. I shall put it in the chat quickly, just so people can go and follow. It's there in the chat now. So yes, all the best luck with your work to come. And it's been an absolute wonder to talk to you today. You've been very supportive throughout all this, even though it's been a bit hit and miss with connecting on times and everything. I've fallen asleep. There's nothing that I can really think of. So I think it's a good place. We're coming up to an hour. So yes, thank you for turning up. Thank you to everyone who has turned up to watch the stream, and a big thank you to everyone who has donated as well. It has been wonderful entertaining you, and hopefully educating as well.
All right, that's it. Bye-bye from me and the doggo.
Okay.
Isn't that right, doggo?
Bye-bye. And yeah, so everyone, remember to do your bit.
And wash your hands.
And wash your hands, yes. Okay.